Welcome to Soul Seeker. I'm Sam Kabert, and I'll be your guide on this journey. I started the show back in 2019, chasing answers like many of us do. But what I've come to understand is this: it's not the seeking that fulfills us. It's what we find in the quiet stillness beneath the search. When we stop chasing and learn to be with what is, we access a deeper wisdom. One that leads not to more doing, but to ease, grace, joy, and true fulfillment. My mission with this podcast is to help high performers just like yourself to regulate your nervous system, reprogram subconscious patterns, and embody emotional freedom so you can lead with clarity, resilience, and alignment. Welcome to Soul Seeker. Let's grow. What is up, and welcome to the first solo podcast of Soul Seeker in a very, very long time. Thank you guys so much for being here. As you already know, my name is Sam Kabert. I am the host of Soul Seeker. And it's funny because I started this podcast back in 2019. And that was very much at the beginning of my journey of spirituality. And at the time, I was managing multiple podcasts. I had a few of my own, managing some for others. Was just named to Silicon Valley's 40 under 40 list. Finally hit $1 million in sales in my business. Was working less than 4 hours a day. I'd achieved literally peaked at my version of Mount Everest, or for another way of feeling about it, winning the Super Bowl, in the arena that I was playing. Yet I went through a very deep, dark, and numbing depression. And that's what led to this podcast, Soul Seeker. And here we are about 300 episodes later. And I'm just going to be real, open, honest, and authentic with you guys, because I used to have so much fun doing these solo pods. And now that I've been doing this podcast for 6 years, like anything in life, it can almost feel like just automatic routine. And it's like, okay, let's keep going. But honestly, the podcast for me was starting to feel a little bit stale. All right, so hang in there with me as I have a little sip of tea here. Yeah. So it was starting to feel stale recently, and I was thinking maybe I'll take a pause, because there's been many times in doing this podcast that I've taken a pause. And what I decided and what I landed on was like, how about instead of bringing on guests every single week, I do more of these solo pods, because I really enjoy doing these solo pods and connecting with you all, and not just sharing what's going on in my life personally, but also sharing some of the tools that I have to share. Because when I started this podcast, I had zero tools. Back then I was a business professional, and that was 2019. It wasn't until 2021 that I became a yoga instructor. And then I started to teach yoga. I started to facilitate men's groups. Next, I became a breathwork practitioner, then a master practitioner of NLP, that's neuro-linguistic programming, master practitioner of hypnotherapy, and even MER, mental emotional release. And really, as I look back, it's funny because I felt back in 2019, like this was before the pandemic, but I felt like if the world was coming to an end and I were to just live in a village per se, I would have nothing of value to contribute to that society. That's how I felt. It was a limiting belief. It wasn't necessarily true. I mean, I've always been such a good cook, at least I think so. And I mean, I have done some hunting in my life, and I could for sure do that. But I think for more like a bigger, I've always seen myself as a leader. And if there was a more communal village, it's like, where would I plug and play myself? And that was hard for me to sit with. And I just realized recently, like, oh my God, oh wow, like I've come so far in these past 6 years, and I don't mean chasing certificates, because it's one thing to just chase certificates and not do anything with them. Like, I'm actually transforming people's lives with these certificates that I just mentioned earlier, and I'm just proud of myself. So I'm going to take that moment to be proud of myself now, and I'm also going to slow down and drink my tea as needed, because I'm just coming off of being sick. Yeah, thanks for bearing with me here. Being sick is a really, really fascinating experience, because when we're sick, something that happens for most of us, I think everyone, is we aren't drinking coffee. And I don't know about you, but I have an interesting relationship with coffee. For years, I didn't drink coffee. I don't know what shift in recent years where I became a coffee drinker, like in a ritualistic everyday coffee drinker. But back in, say, 2012 to 15, at least that 3 year stretch, I remember drinking, and at the time, 2012 to 2015, give or take, that time period, I was, let's see, that was 13 years. I was in my early to mid 20s, let's just call it that. So I remember, those Saturday and Sunday brunches after a night of drinking. I'm talking about those Saturday, Sunday brunches when you're in your 20s, or maybe in your 30s, maybe earlier, but when you're hungover and you're going to the diner or the local restaurant. We don't really have diners out here in Silicon Valley in the Bay Area, but there I go, showing my New Jersey roots using a word like diner. But those, they do feel like diners, those breakfast joints. And that would be one of the few times that I would drink coffee. Like on the weekend when we would go out and be like, okay, I'd have coffee. But even back then in 2012, before I was into mindfulness or spirituality, anything like that, I was huge into kombucha. I remember this one time going to Safeway, it's a grocery store, and seeing the GT's kombucha. This is back in 2012. This is before most people knew what kombucha was, despite being a major chain grocery store. And I remember looking at it, and I've always been I've always been into health and been into like weird stuff. And I looked at the bottle. I don't remember what that GT's bottle looked like, what brand it was, or what flavor it was. It was probably Trilogy. That's one of their most popular flavors. But back then, they actually had the SCOBY floating in it. And if you're familiar with the SCOBY is an acronym that stands for symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. That's what SCOBY stands for. It's known as the mother. That's what creates the kombucha. Back then, I didn't know anything about kombucha or anything at all. All I saw was there was like this loogie thing floating in this drink. And as gross as it looked, and this is how my mind works, right? Like, Safeway is a major chain grocery store, and if they have this thing that looks healthy and it's got this disgusting looking loogie thing in there, this must be good for you. I want to try it. That's how my mind would work, right? So I got into kombucha. That's how I got into kombucha in my early mid 20s. And that's also why I wasn't drinking coffee, because I was just so I really liked kombucha and how it made me feel as opposed to coffee. And I remember drinking so much kombucha that at one point in my early to mid 20s, I decided to get a kegerator for my house. No, I didn't get a kegerator because I was an alcoholic and wanted beer on tap. I got a kegerator. This is so funny. I got a kegerator so I could have kombucha on tap. I was spending so much money and drinking so much kombucha that it just made more sense to have it on tap. Those were some fun days. Then I started to brew my own kombucha. All right. The point here is, somewhere along the lines of my journey, coffee became a ritualistic thing for me. I've not been trying to get off coffee for a while, because if I've been trying to get off coffee, I would. I believe for anyone that wants to make change in their life, they have to truly want that thing. And the reason why we don't experience that transformation is because the desire for that change doesn't outweigh the current state or behavior of doing whatever that we're doing that doesn't allow us to get that change that we're looking for. So in examining that towards coffee, I've always looked at like, oh, coffee would be it would be nice to get off of coffee, as opposed to like really desiring to get off of it. Having said all that, having just been sick for about a week, not drinking coffee, oh my God, it feels so much better to not drink coffee. Now that I'm feeling better, I'm just drinking a little bit of coffee in the morning. I think I may, you can come back and check with me on this, but I think I might actually declare it is something I'm going to get off of. All of this is really talking about what it feels like to slow down, because when we're sick, we're not drinking our coffee that just gets us in that mode, and it also affords us an opportunity to feel into what's important. And one of the reminders for me anytime that I get sick, which is rare, is that being sick is a gift in a lot of ways. And I know what you may be thinking, like, you might be equating this to major illnesses or diseases or anything like that versus a common sickness. And I would still say that's the case even with major illnesses and diseases. I wouldn't want that for myself, or I wouldn't want it for anyone else. But when we can consciously and intentionally reframe it and meet it with gratitude and curiosity, then we can start to understand how it's a gift. Now, hang in with me here, because when we're sick, it's a purging, it's a cleansing. I just went through a huge, massive upgrade. It literally was a quantum leap, a quantum shift. People that I've known for some of my best friends, put it that way, they didn't even look the same after experiencing this quantum shift. After going through this quantum leap, it makes sense that my body was purging and detoxifying, because that's what sickness is. It's those old energies that are leaving your body from a spiritual, esoteric level. And when we look at this with diseases and illnesses that are deeper than a common flu or something like that, it's because our body is trying to get our attention. Now, if you haven't listened to my recent podcast episode talking about multiple sclerosis, MS, please go back and listen to that episode, because in that one, we talk about this at depth, and it's really going to make a lot more sense. And I just love that conversation. It was probably one of my most favorite recent conversations. So what was this quantum leap that I just experienced anyways? Well, let's talk about NLP for a moment. NLP stands for Neuro Linguistic Programming. It's literally what Tony Robbins uses. You'll rarely hear Tony Robbins say NLP or Neuro Linguistic Programming, but all of his career was based on NLP. There's these guys, these gentlemen by the name of Richard Bandler and John Grinder, and they started NLP back in the day. I should know. I think it was in the 60s, 1965, I want to say, if I'm trusting my unconscious mind. It was a while ago, put it that way. And Tony Robbins ate it up. He started to get certified in the modality, and he started to have these I wasn't alive. This is what I'm told, right? So this is secondhand information for some of you listening. You'll be like, oh yeah, I remember that. And you'll be like, oh, that's so cute. He's talking about it and he wasn't even there and he doesn't even know. He's just repeating information. And that's cool too. But point being is that even though we may not actually, some of you may not be familiar with NLP. I want you to understand that this work has been around for about 60 years, and it's absolutely transformational. And what it is getting into light hypnosis, getting into trance. It's how we actually rewire the unconscious mind. It's been said that the unconscious mind is the ultimate supercomputer, yet we are never given a manual for it. You might be familiar with Neville Goddard's work, a spiritual teacher from the early 1900s, or perhaps Emile Coué, or maybe even Napoleon Hill and his work with Outwitting the Devil, and of course, Think and Grow Rich. All of these major influencers from even late 1800s to early mid 1900s were talking about how to reprogram the mind, the importance of the subconscious mind. Excuse me. Had a cough there. That's that lingering little cough from being sick. The point here about the unconscious mind is none of this work is new. It is, however, very impactful. And I started to become a student of the unconscious mind back in 2023, like going on a deep dive of the unconscious mind. At that time, I had spent the previous 4 years getting really deep into spirituality, all things esoteric, plant and earth medicines, very, very deep in that kind of way. And it felt like a grounding season as I started to get into not just neuroscience, but understanding how the unconscious or subconscious mind works. And I remember going to my first formal NLP training just last year, actually, summer of last year. And I literally was sitting on the edge of my seat because I was so excited, because it was all the different things that I have been self-studying like on a deep level for a year. And when I say self-study, I want this to be clear, because a year's not a lot of time, right? Like there's a lot, you might have been studying the unconscious mind longer than a year, or perhaps yoga or some other topic. But when I do a deep dive, literally everything I'm consuming is around that topic. So I'm saying for like a year of every day listening to podcasts, to audibles, reading books, watching documentaries, all of these things. And that is primary, probably 70-80% of the content that I'm consuming had to do with the unconscious mind. So when I made it to my first NLP training, I was so excited. I was like a kid in Disneyland, and I was just sitting on the edge of my seat with like a shit-eating grin because I was so stoked. And it had been just the formal training for everything that I was looking for. And that's why I decided to go deeper in NLP and becoming a master practitioner of it, doing more trainings in 2024 for NLP, MER, and hypnotherapy. And then this most recent quantum leap was being immersed in an NLP environment that's called trainer's training. And trainer's training really stretches you. It's teaching you how to become a trainer of NLP so that you can certify others. Now, I didn't go into this training so that I could certify other people in NLP. Bigger reason for why I went was because they were teaching you how to be a more effective communicator, speaker, and trainer, really. And for those of you that may not be totally familiar with my story, the business I had in 2019 that was doing so well was a swag business, a branded merchandise company. Pandemic kind of rocked that business. Plus, after having the spiritual awakening, I no longer wanted to do it. So for all those reasons, I shut the doors on that business. And since 2022, I've been focused on not only my coaching business, but just as important, or more importantly, building my speaking business. And in speaking, I mean going to conferences and leading presentations, keynote presentations. And it's not rah-rah inspirational. It's actually giving people tangible tools. And before my formal training in the unconscious mind, I was focusing more on nervous system regulation through breath work. Now that I'm so well versed in the unconscious, I'm stacking unconscious reprogramming with nervous system regulation. And I'm so stoked on that because when I look out in the field or my peers and colleagues and I see what's there, I see people either focusing on mental health or emotional health. And let me drink a little bit of tea here. The truth is, we need both mental and emotional health. Science teaches that anytime we have a thought, that thought gets sent to our body and that creates a feeling. Now, the 90-second rule that was coined by the neuroanatomist Jill Taylor, who was named to Time's Most Influential People in 2008, she coined the 90-second rule, which teaches that we can move through emotions in as little as 90 seconds. The caveat, though, is that we have to feel that emotion. So as the thought gets sent to the body, that creates a feeling. Because most of us are disassociated from our feelings, if we're not processing that feeling and it gets back sent as a thought, then we get caught in thought loops and we ruminate either on the future or the past. And this is why mainstream society prioritizes mental health. Let me cough here one moment. The reason why mainstream society prioritizes mental health so much is because of this process of the mind-body connection, where anytime you experience a thought, it gets sent as a feeling, but because we're not allowing ourselves to feel, we get stuck in the mind, when the language of the mind is thinking, it's thoughts, right? And so the mainstream says, oh wow, we are having too many thoughts. We are having incessant thoughts, or disturbing thoughts, or annoying thoughts, or thoughts are just not serving us, or we're just thinking too much. Whatever the case is, it doesn't really matter. The point is we're always thinking and we're lost in our thoughts. So it's like, okay, do mindfulness, do mental health, do all these different things. And the reason none of that works and why we actually don't see good solutions in the field of mental health is because we're not prioritizing emotional health. The secret here is to realize that when we experience that thought, it gets sent to the body, creates that feeling. And when we prioritize our feelings, then we're prioritizing emotional health so that we can feel safe enough to move through that feeling. And when we do, then we get the clarity we're seeking. It's not in more mindset. It's not on focusing mental health. It's focusing on feeling, because feelings are the language of the body, while thoughts are the language of the mind. So to bring this full circle, what I'm so excited about is bridging the gap between mental and emotional health, looking at subconscious reprogramming as mental health and nervous system regulation with breath work as emotional health, and bridging the gap and bringing those two together. That's where my focus has been for the past 6 to 10 months, I would say. The deeper I go in understanding the unconscious mind, I can communicate this more effectively. So this last training I did, again, it wasn't to certify others in NLP. It was to be a more effective communicator so that I can rock the stage more and bring this to the masses and actually help transform people's lives, because I am sick and tired of hearing about mental health. I've been prioritizing mental health for at least 15 years. And there's specific reasons why, some of it having to do with my own depression and depressive type symptoms is a better way to say it, becoming a survivor of suicide, all these different things. I've been so passionate about mental health, but it wasn't until the past year that really clicked for me. It was like, oh, it's mental and emotional health. And everything I'm teaching with nervous system regulation and breath work is emotional health. And it's not that mental health is bad, because of course it's great. We need both, though, is my point. You know, we've seen the prioritization of mental health in recent years, and that's great. But the next wave, if you're like me and you're an early adopter, or you're a pioneer, you show the way for others, what I want you to know is emotional health is the next wave, and it's coming. It's coming real soon. Hey, it's Sam. Can I share something real quick that I think might actually help you? If you've ever felt overwhelmed by your emotions, like you're doing all the right things, yet you still feel off, it's not because you're broken. You know, most of us were never taught how to feel in a way that actually helps us heal. That's why I created Breath Club, a free community where I guide weekly breathwork sessions to help you regulate your nervous system, process emotions, and return to clarity. We use something called the 90-second reset, a simple, science-backed practice that shows how fast emotions shift when you allow yourself to feel them fully. You'll get access to live calls, a community, and on-demand breathwork exercises to reset anytime. No pressure, just an invitation to feel safe in your body again. Links in the show notes if you want to join us. So let me take a quick little cough and a sip of tea here. Why all this is important? What are we actually talking about here? We're talking about coffee. We're talking about mental and emotional health. We're talking about kombucha, or what else? Quantum leap. That's where we're at. Quantum leap. Well, I did that 3-week training, and as I did that 3-week training, and I came back on the other side, that's when I started to notice some of my best friends, they didn't look the same. And that's when I noticed that quantum leap. I was like, oh, something has changed here. I shifted timelines, like literally some things that I experienced, even memories from just a year or two ago, literally felt like lifetimes ago. And it was blowing my mind. So when I did get sick recently, that's how I immediately, it was like, oh, this is a purge. This is a detoxification. So as much as it sucked to be sick, I also wasn't escaping it, running from it. I was just like, hey, this is where we're at right now. And I am really grateful that I'm on the other side of the sickness now, because now I can get back to work. One of the things that I want to share with you all is that I'm doing my first 2-day event. It's on September 27th and 28th of this year, 2025, and it's in San Jose, California, and it's from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. both days. It's just $200 for the first 25 people that register, and after that, it's only $250. So it's an absolute steal. Now, I don't care where you live, whether it's outside the country, or you live in the country, or you live in California. If this is at all interesting to you, I want you to hit me up. I want you to check out the details for this event, because it is worth the flight if you need to fly in. And it's right by the airport. It's about 10 minutes away from the airport. It's called Beyond the Hustle. You know, if you're familiar with my story, you would know that I was very much entrenched in the hustle and grind, and that got me so far. I was operating on a level of like energetically doing, having, than being. And I was unconsciously doing that. It was like, people would be like, Sam, how are you able to do so much? And I'd be like, VAs. They're like, what's a VA? I'm like, virtual assistant. And that's how I was able to leverage multiple brands, businesses, and projects while working less than 4 hours a day and clearing over $1 million in sales in my business. It was because I was fantastic at doing. And then after I would do something, then I would have that result. And then I finally had time to be, and I was like, damn, who the heck am I? I don't even know. And that's what launched me on the spiritual journey. So in NLP, we talk about the importance of going from being to doing to having. Personally, I call this the creation codes: being, doing, and then having. Now, as you hear me talk about this, I want you to just connect with all the times in your life that you approached a goal. Did you start from a being energy or doing energy? Most of us in Western society, if we don't know this because of our conditioning and programming, we're actually starting with that doing energy and we're ending with the being energy. And that's why we get so upset and frustrated and feeling like a hamster on a hamster on a wheel, not actually going anywhere. When we reframe this to being, doing, having, we know who it is that we are. We're clear on that. We have the clarity, focus, and intention there. We know our values and our beliefs. We're doing the inner work. And from there, we can do the thing that we are meant to do in our life that lights us up. And finally, we'll have that end solution or result or achievement or accomplishment, whatever it is. Being, doing, having. That is the model of the creation codes. And that has changed my life just to realize, oh my God, on an unconscious level, because 95% of our habits and behaviors we don't have access to, they're unconscious. And that's how I was operating, from doing, having to being. It just made so much sense when I understood that. And even though it's like, this is one of those things that will change your life. I don't want to discount it. It truly is, when you realize the importance of being first and then doing, having. So that's just one small example of something that we're going to be doing at the event. This is an experiential event. I'm so stoked. My vision for my work is to be doing more events and to working with people just like yourself. And, the being, doing, having is like the goal setting side. That's the other side. But in order to get to a place of goal setting, we have to do our release work. There's 4 requisites to change according to Dr. Matt James and NLP. And I love this. It's really made a huge impact on me as well as my clients. Those 4 requisites for change or transformation are as follows. Number 1 is your release work. Release your baggage, let it go, become aware of what's holding you back and let it go. Number 2 is to set a compelling vision for the future. And that can be like that being energy, right? And who is that person? What do they look like? What do they embody? What do they do? What are their daily actions, habits, and behaviors? Not getting focused on end destinations or, achieving, but just from a being energy. Number 3 is taking purposeful action. If we have done our release work first, and then secondly, we have created a compelling vision of the future, now it's on us to take action and actually do those things to work towards that compelling future. And finally, number 4 is to maintain a positive focus. Now, I believe it's really important to process and allow yourself to feel those negative thoughts, beliefs, and emotions as they come up. That is, we need to do that first, then we release them. And then at that point, we access maintaining a positive focus. We've earned the right to invoke the power of positive thinking because we've done our shadow work. So the 4 requisites for transformation, write this down. It's going to change your life. Number 1, release work. Number 2, create a compelling vision of the future. Number 3, take purposeful action. And number 4, maintain a positive focus. All of this are different type of things that we're going to be getting into in the event. And the release work is so profound. I'm going to mix in my background with nervous system regulation, with breath work, combined with stacking that with subconscious reprogramming. We're going to totally eliminate all of the 6 major negative beliefs. We're going to vanish them. And if you want to learn more about that, I can do a whole separate podcast talking about that. It's really fascinating work. Pause. You're holding your breath again, aren't you? Most high performers don't need more doing. They need a nervous system reset. I'm Sam Kaber, and I'm a keynote speaker and nervous system coach, helping people just like yourself to reset from burnout and return to clarity. I've worked with organizations and audiences ready to move beyond burnout and into embodying clarity. My keynotes blend storytelling, subconscious reprogramming, and live breathwork experiences that get people out of their heads and back into their lives. If you're planning a conference, retreat, or leadership event and want something that doesn't just inspire, but actually transforms, head to the link in the show notes. Let's make your next event unforgettable. We'll eliminate one limiting belief. I'll teach you a framework for anxiety so that you'll no longer experience anxiety. In fact, anytime that you feel like you might be feeling anxious, you'll have this tool that you can use so that you can knock out that anxiety in less than 90 seconds. It's backed by science and it's been around for a while. And it works. So that's my event, Beyond the Hustle. So stoked. It's on September 27th through September 28th. If you want to join us, definitely check it out. I would love to have you there. For the rest of our time together for this podcast, I think what I'd like to focus on is, what would I like to focus on? Let me feel into that for a moment here. I know it is. I know it is. I feel like for a long time, I've been focusing on healing work, whether it's feeling your emotions or doing a deep dive of releasing trauma and things like that. Where I'd like to go is more performance wise, because I feel like it's really easy to get caught in a trap, in the loop of chasing the healing of just like, oh, I gotta do another healing thing. Oh, there's another negative emotion. Oh, there's this, that, whatever the thing is, right? But where I think most people that are doing this kind of work get stuck is just that, and kind of cycling through healing. And it's almost, even though we and they say it's not about fix it, it's about being, right? It's a being energy, being with it, as opposed to a fix it. The fact that there's almost this addiction to the healing work makes it more of a fix it energy than a being energy. And where I'm currently in my life is I'm working on performance, y'all. Like, more than anything else, I want to feel great day to day. I want to feel great moment to moment. And what's really funny is just looking at breath work. Like, what got me into breath work? Releasing trauma, and things like that, being reconnected to this human experience, having an experience of a breath work journey where I literally felt reborn, all of it's feeling and healing, right? And recently, a few months ago, I heard Steph Curry, one of the best NBA players of all time, he's going to go down as one of the best basketball players of all time. And I heard him say in an interview, when he was asked, what's the number one overlooked skill that you attribute to your success? That was the question. What's the number one skill that's often overlooked that you attribute to your success? And he said, honestly, breathing. What's fascinating about this is Steph can lower his heart rate from 150 beats per minute to just 80 beats per minute in as little as 90 seconds. Now, for context, what Steph can do in a minute and a half, lowering his heart rate from 150 beats per minute to 80, it would take other players in the league 5 minutes to do. People on his level, his caliber, right? And the reason why I bring that up is because that's a perfect illustration of how we can utilize breath work for stamina, endurance, performance, and when I know that you know this, when you are exercising consistently and when you're eating healthy, it's the best thing for your mental and emotional health. Like, we could do all the healing work and all these different modalities, breath work and subconscious reprogramming and all these different things. But if you feel good in your body because you're working out physically and you're eating healthy, everything else just clicks. Even your breath work becomes better. Your intuition is heightened, so you have a greater connection to your unconscious mind, because all it is connecting with your unconscious mind is building your intuition. It's both scientific and spiritual, right? So what's that's kind of where I'm at right now, focusing on performance, focusing on getting my workout sessions, my lift sessions in. It's light lifting. I'm not trying to become a bodybuilder. I don't like being sore or anything like that, but just getting in my body, working on lean muscle, swimming, surfing, eating healthy, And we're working with breath work to increase my stamina and endurance, specifically for surfing. Because when I'm paddling out past those waves, like when there's big waves breaking, it is a struggle to get out there. It's like, but when I'm utilizing my breath for performance, all of a sudden I feel stronger and I can breathe with ease. So that's kind of where I'm at with all of this, focusing on performance more than anything else. But I want to hear from you guys. Every now and then I hear from you guys, but I'd love to hear from you more. Like, where are you at on your journey? Where do you need the most support? What is lighting you up? What are you most excited about? Hit me up. You can email me, sam@samkabert.com. That's sam@samkabert. I want to know where you're at in your journey. What's lighting you up these days? And what do you want to learn more of? What are some of your current interests, hobbies, and passions? I want to hear from you. So that's what I got for you in this episode of the Soul Seeker podcast. It's pretty short, quick life update where I'm at, overcoming sickness, really celebrating 300 episodes of Soul Seeker, just how amazing that is. And I am going to start to do more solo podcasts. I'm going to take different topics that are interesting to me, and I'm just going to unpack them with you here in real time, give you some real tangible tools that you can use in your life to help you, not just with your emotional and mental health, but your performance as well. One of the things I was playing with recently, just titles and labels. Like, I don't get tied to titles and labels too much, but I was just thinking, like, with all the work that I've been doing and all the work that I do, like, what am I? Like, what do I do when someone asks, right? And what I landed on was a neuro performance coach. It's really about getting our mental and emotional health in order, both through neuroscience, NLP, nervous system regulation with breath work. And when I put it all together, that's why I landed on. I was like, well, a majority of what I teach is really back to neuroscience. I'm really into neuroscience and I'm really into performance. So that's what I'm calling myself these days, a neuro performance coach, which I kind of like the ring to it. I want to hear from you though. Let me know what you think. And with that, we'll close out this episode of the Soul Seeker podcast. I appreciate you being here, and we'll see you again real soon. And if you're new to the pod, make sure you leave a 5-star rating and review. It just helps other people discover the podcast so that they can learn and get value from it, just like how you are. Have a great day. I'll talk with you real soon. Thank you so much for listening to the very end. I hope you dug this podcast just as much as I enjoyed it. If you got anything at all, please, if you could just do me a favor and leave a 5-star review wherever you listen to this podcast, it helps the show grow. So thank you for considering to leave a review. If you want to go deeper with Soltara or Elan, you can find the links to connect with them in the show notes. And if you want to work with me, the best way to work with me, the easiest way to work with me is the free way, and that's by joining the Breath Club. The link to the Breath Club is in the show notes. And also know that I'm available for one-on-one support, that is coaching and guidance, as well as keynotes and breathwork journeys for conferences and events. Thank you so much, and I will see you on the next episode of The Soul Seeker.